Reawakening. Welcome back to Reawakening, the Dream Interpretation Podcast. I am your host, Chris Mann, and we've taken a little hiatus here, but we are happy to be back with another Season 5 episode. Shortly, I'll be joined by our dream interpreter, Yvonne Ryba, and she looks at a lengthy, somewhat confusing dream that she received from a person that was part of a women's group that she spoke for earlier this year. And this is a unique chance to look at a back and forth between a dreamer and an interpreter. They communicate by email here to get illumination as the dialogue unfolds about the dream. Yvonne will offer her input, offer some questions, and the dreamer gives clarification that further enables Yvonne to pinpoint the specific meanings of some universal symbols in the dream and give the dreamer that much more clarity herself. So stay tuned and grab you some tea or some coffee. This will give you an idea of how a back and forth with Yvonne would go if you ever have your own dream that you need interpreted and would like for her to look at it via email first, and then we can share it on the show. Email us at risingactionmedia@gmail.com and we will do your dream on a future broadcast. So stay tuned. Hi again, Yvonne. Happy 2018.
Yes, happy 2018 back at you.
You got something good for us?
Yes, I have. I have got a really long dream.
Okay.
And this dream came to me from someone. I gave a talk on interpreting dreams to a group, and about, 60-something women. And they were very interested, and one of them said, I have this dream I just had, and it's really complicated, and I don't know what it means. And I said, well, email it to me. So this is what we're going to deal with today.
Wonderful.
We're going to deal with this dream. And she then came back when I put my feelings about it and sent it to her. She replied again with what she felt about my explanations.
Oh, good. So there's a little bit of a back and forth.
Yes, there is. And that's good to have some feedback.
Yeah, especially with someone you don't personally know. That helps you.
No, don't know her. And I think this is when you don't know somebody, it's a little bit of a disadvantage, because whatever their memories are, you don't know that. You don't know where they came from or what influenced them and so on. So it's up to them to come up with that. It's up to them to remember.
Right. Okay. So tell us about her dream.
Here is the dream. And I'll go through it and then come back and give you my feelings on it.
Great.
I'm back in my hometown in Louisiana. I moved to Texas in 1990. I was in a part of town that I never liked and have had multiple dreams about, and I'm always stressed, confused, and have feelings of inadequacy. This was going to be my wedding day, and then in parentheses, to my present husband. I was driving towards a house where the wedding was going to be, and he was in a car behind me. I lost control of the car and dented the rear of the car in front. The police were immediately on the scene. My husband told me not to say a word. He would handle it. He and the officer talked, then both came to me telling me the accident wasn't my fault and I was free to go. The officer made a remark about the driver of the car I'd hit. You know how those people are, he said. I didn't see the driver and didn't know who those people were. I was afraid and ashamed because I knew the other driver was innocent and was getting the blame. I was hurt that my husband did this to an innocent person. When I arrive at the house for the wedding, I'm still very upset. The house turns out to be the first house that my first husband and I lived in, and a main object of many dreams of differing stories, feelings, and outcome. And this house was a gift from my dad.
Oh.
I found out that the wedding is to be held in the driveway, which is on the opposite side of the house from where the real driveway was. Many of my Texas friends were there, and it didn't feel unusual for them to be there. I was rushing to get dressed when I saw my nails were chipped. I grabbed red polish to try to repair the damage. I smeared the nails I'd done, making them worse. Now they were sporadically red and neutral. I couldn't leave them that way, so I decided to remove all the polish. Police officers with a detective arrived on the scene, telling me I was under arrest for murder because of the accident. This confused me more because there were no injuries. The detective said I had a few minutes to get everything together before being taken to jail. I went through a cabinet looking for which coffee cup I wanted to take to jail when I remembered my nails. I know, funny. More than freedom or essentials, my nails were my priority. My adult daughters tried to tell me not to worry about the nails. Somehow, I got out of the house with several people helping me to run and hide. A female officer found me, but she was crying. I knew she was pregnant. She then climbed on my lap, hugging me and crying. There was some kind of connection between us, even though I didn't know her. I comforted her as a mother would a daughter. She then did all she could to protect and hide me. There was a part where I was driving on a boulevard, which led to a tunnel. I didn't go into the tunnel. I don't know how I got from there to the house. That's all I remember. Strange, isn't it?
It is.
That's the end of the meal, yes.
So there's a lot there, obviously, for you to look through.
Yes.
So tell me the process of arriving to your analysis. There's a little bit of a back and forth with the dreamer?
Yes, there was. What I did was I emailed back in between what she'd written, my feelings, and then she emailed me back with what she felt about what I'd said. Okay, or she might have just put a little bit of information in there.
Okay.
Before we start on that, I just want to say that the important thing about our dreams is they might be long and confusing, and we can't figure out why we're all stressed out and so on. Something in your life has touched a memory of when you were in a difficult place.
Yeah.
It'll go back to your past and drag up something that you didn't like and remind you how you felt, like very vulnerable or whatever.
Sure.
So I think that's what this dream is really about. So here we go. I'm going to read it again and this time put my thoughts in there. And I think I will also put in at the same time what she replied to me.
Perfect.
I'm back in my hometown in Louisiana. I moved to Texas in 1990. I was in a part of town that I never liked and have had multiple dreams about, and I'm always stressed, confused, and have feelings of inadequacy. I said, memories of the past, especially unpleasant ones, show you're feeling anxious about a situation now. One where you were not in control then and you weren't feeling in control now. And she replied to this, I was never in control in my personal life when I lived there, even though I was successful in business.
Okay.
This was going to be my wedding day, she says, to my present husband. I was driving towards a house where the wedding was going to be, and he was in a car behind me. I say, you were by yourself. It's all on you. You don't feel too connected to him here. But she writes back, it felt like he was watching over me as a protector. I think there might be a little bit more to that as the dream goes on. But yes, this man obviously is a protector.
Okay.
The dreamer. I lost control of the car and dented the rear of the car in front of me. I write, anxiety shows what you think might happen. You lose control. Not too badly. You only dent the car in front of you a little, so you're still okay. And then she replied, I'm afraid of losing control when driving. I couldn't see well backing out of the church parking lot on Wednesday night, and it made me anxious. Later that night, I had the dream.
Oh,
so
yeah.
See, there is, when she had, and you can get a nasty fright. I remember once many years ago, backing out of a parking lot in a restaurant, and somebody walked behind me, and it was dark. And as I'm backing up slowly, because I never do that quickly, this person walked behind me and gave me such a shock. I thought I could have run that person over.
Yeah.
They weren't watching what was going on. It was dark, I had my lights on. And I was looking through the back window and they suddenly appeared. And I remember my heart shooting out of my mouth almost at the thought of what could have happened. So this is what's happened to her. In some way, this thing has brought on all of the anxiety that she had when she was in a different life, when she lived in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the dreamer says the police were immediately on the scene. I say, police represent authority. We pay attention to them in our lives. Here, the police represent your own higher consciousness, or perhaps we can call it our subconscious mind, which tells us when to move forward or to stop, And the police also mean that you could look for guidance in this situation. And in the dream, I'm thinking it feels like whether you should marry or not. This is a very common feeling just before marriage, by the way. Were you already married at this time? And she replied, we have been married for 23 years.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So she's dreaming she's going to get married to this guy, but she's already been married to him for 23 years.
Yeah.
So that means that this is a new beginning in some way that she's looking for. She says, I wasn't intimidated by the police. I was just shaken from losing control of the car. This is recurring in my dreams. So she's always got this feeling of this going back when she had no control over her life.
I see.
Her personal life, that is.
Mm-hmm. The current husband seems to be a good influence in her life. Mm-hmm. So this might be going back to a quarter century ago.
Yes, a bit of her old husband, obviously, and and we'll see about her father as well shortly.
Okay.
My husband, the dreamer says, told me not to say a word. He would handle it. He and the officer talked, then both came to me telling me the accident wasn't my fault and I was free to go. I say, you feel that your future husband, in quotes, will be able to help and support you in your life, especially when you feel anxious about things. He and the police are combined here, so he's a guide for you too. Then the officer made this remark about the driver of the car that she'd hit. You know how those people are. I didn't see the driver and didn't know who those people were. I say, this seems to come from some personal memory you have. Do you remember having to deal with prejudice in some form in this town? Those people, in quotes, sounds like a racist or religious bigotry.
Right.
Did your future husband express this at any time, or did he remind you of someone who did? And she replies, I don't remember. It was definitely racial. This part of town is mostly black. So, again, she's identifying, I think, just my thought here, she's identifying with people who are treated badly and accused of things which they haven't done.
And she's white, the dreamer
is white. Yeah,
okay.
She's white, but she's identifying with the black people in the town.
Right.
And reads a lot of it in the papers about how black people are often bullied and accused of things and so on.
Sure.
When they haven't done anything.
Yeah.
Not that that doesn't happen to white people too, but I think we both know that.
Disproportionately. Feeling. Interesting. Okay. And that was spoken by the male police officer.
Yes, the male police officer.
Okay.
I was afraid and ashamed because I knew the other driver was innocent and was getting the blame. I was hurt that my husband did this to an innocent person. And I say, you feel your husband to be was unfair in some way. Now, there's obviously a lot of memories in this woman's mind that's coming back, and she's identifying some stuff with perhaps the past husband or somebody that's in her life at the moment who is interfering or affecting her. Now, this doesn't have to be a husband. It can be somebody connected to the family, or if she's in business, it could be a boss figure. I don't know because I don't know her that well, I don't know her at all, really. Anyway, the next part of the dream goes on. When I arrive at the house for the wedding, I'm still very upset. The house turns out to be the first house that my first husband and I lived in, and a main object of many dreams of differing stories, feelings, and outcomes. And the house was a gift from my dad. And that's true. That was really a gift from her dad. So I write, interesting that the house was a gift from your dad. It holds many memories, obviously some unpleasant ones. Your dream anxiety suggests that you are frightened you may be headed in the same direction as before. Your dad's influence here may also have some bearing on your feelings. Since I don't know you, this could be good or bad. You will have to think this out for yourself. He replied, my dad is deceased, but I was always afraid of him.
Oh.
Yes, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
My first husband was dominating and emotionally brutal. Example, on our wedding day, he told me that if I ever talked back to him, he would leave me.
Wow.
That's really hit home. The only time I ever heard my mother stand up to my dad, he grabbed a few things and walked out, never to return.
Oh, wow.
And then she puts, he had a mistress. So obviously headed off to her.
Sure.
So she's had some very, dominating is not quite the word, obviously great feelings of abandonment or fear of abandonment.
Yeah.
Here, which, she's in a good marriage now, 23 years, but they still come back to haunt her when something pops up that makes her vulnerable.
And bullying, too, right?
Bullying, terrible. Imagine somebody telling me they'd leave you if you ever talk back to him. It shows you know who you're marrying, doesn't it?
That's for sure.
So she writes there that this house was where we lived when my babies were born, and at times I really miss the house. Sometimes an attic is haunted but not scary. In some dreams, my husband and or other men meld into one. Well, attics represent memories, all right? That's where we store things. We put away stuff we don't need straight away. And so they often represent in the body our memories. And some of these memories are coming back, and she feels that haunting but not scary. And the husbands and the other men melding into one could be, sometimes we feel like, we're being got at by the opposite sex.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to always be women. Men can have this feeling too.
Sure.
Women get them. So that was her comment there. And then she has in the dream, I find out that the wedding is to be held in the driveway, which is on the opposite side of the house from where the real-life driveway was. Many of my Texas friends were there, and it didn't feel unusual for them to be there. And I write, not in the house, but outside of it and in a driveway. Your higher self tells you it is not going to be the same as before. It is outside of that experience. Driveways are extensions of the self and represent a new way of change coming. Also, it is opposite to before, and this is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then she is rushing around to get dressed when she says, I saw my nails were chipped. I grabbed red polish to try to repair the damage. I smeared the nails I had done, making them worse. Now they are sporadically red and neutral. I couldn't leave them that way, so I decided to remove all the polish. It's the kind of thing you do in a dream.
Right.
So you are a worrywart! ! You want to be perfect, but when it comes down to it, you decide to be just yourself. People are going to see you as you really are, down to earth and without any pretense. Well, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
The dreamer says, police officers were the detective arrived on the scene telling me I was under arrest for murder because of the accident. This confused me more because there were no injuries. The detective said I had a few minutes to get everything together before being taken to jail. And I've written, this is really a funny part of your dream, although you felt it was scary. And this is where looking at the symbols in a dream is so useful. To kill in a dream is to kill some part of your own life, to get rid of it, to see it is no longer any use to you, has no further value to you. And here it is your marriage. That's probably the first marriage, right?
Right.
Jail represents some limitation you put upon yourself. I think it may be you thinking, how will this affect your freedom? And she replies, I was single 12 years before I remarried. I became independent and self-sufficient. Before I married the second time, I was anxious about being married again. Changes and adjustments and so on. Everything turned out fine. Well, that was very good.
Yes.
So this part of this being hauled off to jail and losing her freedom, it came to me that this might be about somebody close to her that she's worried about.
Yeah.
Next part of the dream. I went through a cabinet looking for which coffee cup I wanted to take to jail when I remembered my nails. More than freedom or essentials, my nails were my priority. My adult daughters tried to tell me not to worry about the nails. I write, what does coffee mean to you? It can be relaxing or stimulating. Whatever it means, you intend to include it in your life and with your own cup. She replied, coffee doesn't really have importance in my life. The cup was what was important. In the dream, I remember thinking it odd that prisoners had to supply their own dishes. Yeah, I think it's odd as well. But that's funny. I like that.
Yeah.
So I reply, and in fact, she inserted that into my explanation because I have continued on. Cups are symbols of emotion. They hold our feelings. Nails are more important. Look for wordplay in dreams. Nails can mean your personal appearance or nailing something down.
Mm-hmm.
Were you thinking about making things very clear and precise about what you wanted? Think about this. You will know what it is you wanted. Your grown-up daughters are symbols of a younger you. Youthful figures in dreams show how you felt when you were younger. This is not that important, they tell you. Again, her daughters would know her as she really is.
Right.
Nails are a way of impressing, being definite about a thing. And like I said, it's wordplay. Nails are more than just what we have on our finger, ends. They can be what we hammer into the wall to hang a picture on. Different ways of looking at it.
If I may interject real quick, does
Yes.
the red color or the smearing of red have any significance?
Well, it's a good point, Chris. Red can mean several things, and it depends on the dream. Red is a sign of danger or stop when you're driving. It's also the color of blood.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also, at times, the color of energy and fire. And it means getting on with the thing and being definite and defined and fast-moving.
Okay.
So you have to look at the rest of the dream where it appears and see what that's about. So she's trying to be perfect in this thing where somebody's going to threaten her freedom, and she decides at one point to heck with it and take it all off.
Okay.
Anyway, so here she is, going to be hauled off to jail. Somehow I got out of the house with several people helping me run and hide. I write, you are told you can choose to stay or go. If you go, you will have support from others. Your female side, well, that's the comforting, empathic side, is coming into being. And then she writes, a female officer found me, but she was crying. I knew she was pregnant. She then climbed on my lap, hugging me and crying. There was some kind of connection between us, even though I didn't know her. I comforted her as a mother would a daughter. She then did all she could to protect and hide me. I write, again, the female officer is your guiding consciousness, telling you that you are able to get through this. Pregnancy in dreams means starting a new life. As this one is not yet born, this is a future new life. You have it within you to bring together all the parts of you and move forward. You are the mother and the daughter. You're looking back at when you were younger, in other words, and seeing how the experiences that you've gone through, if you could put them into the younger version, how much better it would have been. Okay, coming up to the end of the dream, she says, there was a part where I was driving on a boulevard, which led to a tunnel. I didn't go into the tunnel. I don't know how I got from there to the house. And I wrote, boulevards are wide streets. Driving on one means that life can move forward easily. The tunnel is a way to a new and greater level of experience. She wrote, the same tunnel in other dreams is very stressful for me. Now, tunnels are huge symbols in dreams. Often they represent being born. The tunnel is the birth canal. And it's a symbol of coming into a new life. And if you believe in reincarnation, it's also a sign of perhaps a memory of a previous existence that you had, or a memory from very, very early on in your life at the moment.
Yeah.
So this tunnel, she didn't go into it yet. She's just waiting. But she's in a place to be able to handle whatever it is. And I'm also not sure that this isn't somebody connected to her that she's thinking about, where she is, like she did with the female officer, mothered them, helped them, because they were in a difficult place. They were pregnant, and they were crying and so on, and crawled into her lap, you see. So so she is also thinking of perhaps mothering somebody else, or that part of her that needs mothering. And this is where you have to dig into your own life about what's going on. So, and that's the dream. That was what I got.
Wow. And so, but did you receive additional feedback from her after your full analysis?
No, she thanked me very much.
Okay.
She put all these little sidebars in here that I read.
Yes.
Were, what she had replied, which I was very grateful for.
That's nice.
And that's good for me to know.
So your impression is that she is taking these things and she's going to figure this out, what these specific things mean to her in her present life, all this stuff from the past, and how she can apply it to what's going on now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's what our messages are for, to help us to get through it. I mean, thing like she needed the cup to take to jail. She needed to have something to put her emotions in, all right? You know, the tarot deck.
Yes.
The 4 suits in the tarot deck. Cups represent emotion and spiritual things. Wands because they're fiery, they have fire at the end of them. Wands represent energy, authority, responsibility. We hold a wand, like, the fairy godmother holds a wand, the king or the emperor holds, some kind of rod, that baton, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
These are all symbols of authority. Each one of these comes into our dreams. That's why they're in that deck. They are using universal symbols that we all understand on a certain level. We may not know on a certain level what a cup represents, but the cards have taken it from a time when we were very clear about emotions and symbols, connecting them together. The other two are the air and the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And if you dream about the earth, it's a very grounding thing. It's a place where things grow. Plants, trees, and so on come from the earth. It probably represents you as well, that you're very down to earth
Mm-hmm.
in the way you are. You're very grounded. It also represents the body, because the Mother Earth, if you like, your own body, is there too. So you've got to look at all these different parts of it.
Yeah, well, the tarot is so fascinating, and certainly cups holding the emotion that had to turn on a light for her in figuring all this out. Another thing that jumped out to me was this idea of the house being a gift from her father, which on the surface would seem like a good thing, but then you find out that the relationship with the father had all of these negative aspects to it. So a gift in a dream is not always a good thing, or in life.
Well, no, it depends. And you see, I'm sure most people have had a time when somebody had given them a gift and expected something back.
Right.
Right? It's not really a gift. It's more of you're beholden to me, you see. And I can imagine her father. Here she is, growing up with a dominating man who abandoned them when he felt like it.
Yeah.
But he'd given the house as a gift. I can imagine him saying, well, are you looking after it? What are you doing with the house? Have you done this? Have you done that? And I can imagine him making sure they never forgot that he gave them the house.
And that they owe him something in some way.
Yes.
Yeah. So she was dreaming of the house she used to live in with her previous husband that was a gift from her father. Both the previous husband and the father, negative influences. But yet she was married to the current husband for 23 years. Apparently a very positive relationship. So there was probably something going on in her life that had to do with another aspect outside of marriage, perhaps, but that all of these previous circumstances with the previous men in her life were bringing home these issues to help her navigate some other aspect of her life.
She's learned a lot, so perhaps she's going to help somebody else from her experience.
Yes.
And that's where it helps to know the person and know what's happening in their life, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, like I said, I didn't know it, and I've got this explanation here that most of the time it seems to be on, apart from personal memories that I don't know about. It's gearing her in the right direction, that's for sure.
Right, and the fact that the driveway was on the other side, this is a good sign.
Yeah, and it wasn't in the house, it was outside of the house, and that's a very important thing. Doesn't seem to be at first, but it is. And on the opposite side of where it was originally, which is good. So, yeah.
And the tunnel and the boulevard, those are positive thoroughfares too.
Yes, well, boulevards, I always think of Paris when I think of boulevards.
Right.
And if anybody's been to Paris, they know these are incredibly wide boulevards. I mean, and they were built that way. They were built so it was difficult because they were built after the revolution, when the revolutionaries were blocking the streets and setting fire to things. It's very hard to block a whole boulevard, believe me.
Right.
It's not easy. So they built these beautiful big wide boulevards really as a kind of resistance against the revolutionaries. But later on afterward, of course. But they are beautiful. They are really beautiful. And then she sees the tunnel, but she's not sure yet. She didn't know that she wants to go in the tunnel yet.
So even though this might have been a very distressing dream to her with the past male relationships in her life and the car accident and being accused of murder, and then when you said the wiping the blood off or the red off her nails, I was thinking, maybe that had something.
Blood on her hands?
Yeah, blood on her hands.
In a sense of she's killing somebody or she thought she might have killed. Yeah, there is you're right, that could be connected.
But it might have a double meaning with, like she's a worrywart. But overall, it was like about perhaps killing off an old way of thinking.
Well, try not to be too perfect because,
Right.
often in dreams we start to mess around with small things when we should be dealing with a big thing.
Yes. We do
And
that in
that's
our
because-
waking lives, too.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And it's to do with that anxiety thing, trying to be perfect. And I said, are you a perfectionist to her? And she said, yes, I am. I tried not to be, but yes, I am. It can be a curse being a perfectionist. You spend all your time trying to improve on one thing instead of getting out and about.
Imagine being a writer and you can't get to paragraph 3 because you're still stuck on sentence 1.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Well, you know that one, yes.
I know that, yeah. Might be why I haven't written a book in a while. But what I really take from this overall is, even though this might have seemed like a distressing or negative or confusing dream to her, you're giving her these indications with the cups and the driveway and the tunnel that she's going to find her way through perhaps tapping into the emotions, the feminine side, how she has empowered herself in the past to maybe help somebody else who might be going through something like this. So is that a fair assessment, hearing what you said?
Yes, I think so.
Good, good, because I think that's what you've imparted to her, and that's empowering, it's helping her see the way ahead. So I like that. Because sometimes you have these dreams that all just seem, you're stuck in the past, and why am I reliving this thing? But it is addressing something that's going on now and showing you the solution.
Exactly.
And that's what we're all about here.
Yes, we are. That's true.
Seeing the way
ahead. We're all about that.
Well, that was a long dream, but a very interesting one with a lot of different components, and I think
it did.
You handled that quite well.
You go through and pick out the universal symbols, the police, the car, the house, the driveway, the cup, everything.
Yes.
And we've talked about them before, and here they are all in this one dream.
All there.
Yes, very interesting.
So many layers.
And I asked her if it was okay to use it, and she said, of course, no names, but I never use names.
Right. Well, helpful to her and helpful to us, and I appreciate you sharing that one, Yvonne.
Thank you.
It's been a good one. Well, it's good to be chatting with you again, and I look forward to more in 2018. Of
course. Well, I look forward to it as well.
It'll be good.
So, till next month.
Till next month. You take care, Yvonne.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Chris.
Reawakening with Chris Mann and Yvonne Ryba is a Rising Action Media production. Copyright 2018 by Chris Mann.